Now we focus our attention to dominating our rookie drafts. You have to know who to prioritize, which rookies you should be taking in these drafts. So let's look at our top 36 Dynasty rookie rankings for 2024. This is post a very fun and very entertaining draft, but at the top of the S tier here, you got to have Caleb Williams, you got to have Marv. And what we're basically saying with this, Caleb Williams, for us in a Superflex league, we're almost always taking Caleb, but Marv being in the same tier means if you're taking Marv over Caleb, we're not going to look at you and say this is incorrect, because Marvin Harrison Jr., dream landing spot, top 5 draft cap, it's not incorrect. It's not incorrect.
I will heavily advocate for taking Caleb Williams in a Superflex league over Marv, but
if you
market value wise, they're in the same tier.
But not only market value, like I think there are team situations where you could be like, yeah, I can just take Marv here if I can't trade back. So Caleb and Marv, obviously Caleb Williams going to the Bears. Not only did he go to the Bears where he had Keenan Allen and DJ Moore, you got Rome Odunze there as well, who we'll talk about in a minute. And then Marvin Harrison Jr. up here at the top as well, getting top 5 draft capital. Going to the Cardinals, playing with Kyler Murray. Great situation for both of these players. They're going to be 2 elite dynasty assets. And whether or not you did the down tier, if you're sitting and picking these guys, you're very, very happy with that. So let's move to this A tier, or how as we've called it, and we'll continue to call it this S2 tier.
S2 tier.
Yeah.
Please don't get upset with us. Remember, these are tiers. You can rank these how you want, but we are going to have Daniels at the top of this tier because he went 2nd overall. And honestly, there aren't many scenarios where we see, just based off the mock drafts that we've been observing over the last 48 hours, that we don't see many players going above Daniels. So that really leads you to think that from a market value perspective, your hands are almost tied. Like if you're at the 103, you should probably be going with Jaden Daniels. If you take Drake May, I don't have an issue with it. And personally, I prefer Drake May. I really, really do. But May is one of those guys that you're likely going to be getting at the 106 or 107 in your rookie drafts. And I think he's going to consistently fall there because people are low on the landing spot, and they didn't get a super big name wide receiver in the NFL draft either. Sure, they got Jalen Polk in the 2nd round. He's not the most ultra popular wide receiver in the class, that's for sure. Then we're going to have Malik Neighbors, who's also going to be here in this tier, going to the Giants. I know one of the biggest things that was kind of the talk of the town going into the draft was if Rome Odunze went to the Giants, he was going to lose some value and people were going to be super low on the landing spot. Lo and behold, Malik Neighbors is the one that gets that landing spot, and people are going to be low on that. And you're going to be able to see him fall to you at the 105 potentially, which is what we were hoping for.
Yeah, I mean,
look, if I'm being honest, this does not change my opinion of Neighbors whatsoever. He belongs in this tier. If you were to take him at the top of the tier, I would not have an issue with it. I think he'll be able to transcend situation. And I mean, it's not like there's any talent there to contend with him anyways for target share.
Yeah.
So he can play slot, he can play outside, he can do whatever's easiest for the quarterback there to get the ball to him. That's probably slot, and that probably means more consistent targets.
There's no targets there, and honestly, like he got top 6 draft capital, guys. Yeah. Let's not overreact to the landing spots. We'll talk about that with Odunze too, but McCarthy's our next guy.
McCarthy. Talk about potentially the most value volatile from a market value perspective asset in this rookie draft within this tier. Like he can go as high as the 104 and as low as the 108 or even 109, depending on what people really feel about Brian Thomas Jr. and Xavier Worthy, who we'll get to. But look, with McCarthy, he objectively got the best landing spot in the NFL draft for a quarterback.
Yeah.
You cannot deny that. And if he's falling to you at the end of this tier to the 107, 108 range, you've got to be taking him there. He got top 10 draft capital. He's a 21-year-old who has a lot of development to be had. And he's going to be able to do it with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson, with Kevin O'Connell, who's really a head coach in the NFL on the rise, in my opinion.
Yeah.
A perfect landing
spot.
Great
fit for him.
That's what you wanted to see for McCarthy. Rome Odunze is going to be at the tail end of this tier, going to the Chicago Bears, and we're going to stand by this. We planted our flag before the draft. We said that Rome Odunze was the #1 guy to target in your rookie drafts after the NFL draft, and he goes to Chicago 9th overall. Keep in mind, 9th overall, not 21st overall like JSN to Seattle, and he's playing with Caleb Williams, who is one of the most athletically gifted quarterback talents that we've seen in a long, long time. Yes, he's playing with DJ Moore. Yes, he's playing with Keenan Allen. Am I worried about that long term? No.
I mean, he just got drafted top 10.
He got drafted top 10. They are building their team around Odunze and Caleb Williams.
I mean, and we saw a good example of this last year on a smaller scale with CJ Stroud and Tank Dell. Going into the Texans at the same time, most people thought, okay, it's going to be Nico, it's going to be even people were saying Mechie would be relevant. And Tank Dell coming in with CJ Stroud in that same rookie class, they developed a chemistry, and obviously the chemistry off the field between Rome and Caleb you've seen before the draft and during the draft is going to be very, very strong. And honestly, I don't understand, why is this such a bad landing spot? They just drafted the #1 overall quarterback. They have other good receivers. Rome Odunze, extremely skilled receiver. This is a good offense with good weapons.
Yeah,
and Odunze just got some significant team investment. This is a good landing spot for Rome Odunze. A lot of people are asking, is Rome dead? Is Rome dead? No, Rome's not dead. Rome's alive and well. And honestly, this tier, we're taking all 5 of these guys over Worthy, over these guys in the next tier, which I'll talk about now. But I mean, Odunze, we're still feeling really good about him. So going down to the B tier here, we're going to start with Xavier Worthy. We were very adamant about Xavier Worthy being the best wide receiver from Texas and also being more than just a speed guy. A lot of people wanted to say, oh, yeah, John Ross. Oh, yeah, those speeder guys. Look, all these top 10, 40 times, they didn't pan out in the NFL. And what we kept pointing to was that Xavier Worthy showcased in his college career being capable of more than just being fast, being capable as a route runner, being capable as a playmaker. And so with Xavier Worthy going to the Kansas City Chiefs, I don't know how the NFL let this happen. I don't know how you let Patrick Mahomes get the fastest guy on the planet. How does that happen? But for a fantasy and dynasty purposes, it means A, he's probably going to be somewhat relevant. Not worried about Hollywood Brown at all. Not worried about Rashee Rice at all. Both of those guys can still produce. Rashee Rice and him are very complementary assets, in my opinion. But with Worthy, from a market value standpoint, you're going to see him go pretty high. A lot of times you'll see him sneak up into that A tier. Again, we're still comfortable with those 5 guys over Worthy. Brooks is going to be our next guy here. Jonathan Brooks, we thought he'd make it to the Cowboys at 56. Instead, the Panthers trade up to get Jonathan Brooks, and he becomes our 109 here, right? 109 because he is the running back 1 in Carolina. On an improved offense, he has almost no competition. Miles Sanders, maybe. People say Chuba Hubbard. No, Chuba Hubbard, is not. They did not just draft Jonathan Brooks at the beginning of the second round to give the ball to Chuba Hubbard consistently.
There's 0 team commitment to Chuba.
And you'll see Chuba get some carries early in the season. People are going to be like, oh, yeah, see, Chuba is relevant. And I promise you guys, as he works his way back from the ACL tier, Jonathan Brooks is going to be a guy that has very good talent. This is a guy coming off a torn ACL at the end of the season that just got this draft capital. That should tell you all you need to know about him from an NFL standpoint, from a dynasty standpoint. Bo Nix, this is one of my favorite picks in the draft right now. Bo Nix is a guy you're consistently getting 110 to 202 in these first round of drafts we've done. Bo Nix is a guy with top 12 NFL draft capital going to a team where he's going to start right away, going to a team where Sean Payton is the coach. I'm not sure if you're looking for a quarterback on your team, a young quarterback, I'm not sure how Bo Nix is not the answer to that because of the situation, because of the skill set. Is he going to be hyper productive from a fantasy perspective? Probably not.
I don't know.
Especially right away.
Maybe.
But you've seen quarterbacks in this build, like Brock Purdy, who has a similar skill set, be fantasy productive. Now, obviously, the main question with the Broncos is going to be the weapons for his production, but they're going to continue to build around Nix. They're very high on this guy. Brian Thomas goes to a great landing spot in Jacksonville, where he is going to work alongside Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk being the primary slot wide receiver, Brian Thomas being the X guy there. This is a good fit, playing with a good quarterback. The system, it's neither here nor there. I mean, I think Brian Thomas is pretty skilled for the type of receiver he is. So given that, I'm excited about the landing spot. I'm excited about the fit with Trevor Lawrence and the fit with Christian Kirk. And that's pretty much where I stand on Brian Thomas Jr.
And I'll tell you what, man, my opinion on what Brian Thomas could be in the NFL has become a lot more positive because we were worried if he were to get a landing spot like the Colts that he would not be a consistent target drawer.
He's getting targets.
And he's getting targets there. One of the bigger comps was hey, he's going to be a way better version of Gabe Davis in the NFL. Well, guess what? He's going to the team that has Gabe Davis. He's not going to be playing that role. He's going to be filling Calvin Ridley's shoes, and there is a ton of target opportunity there for him.
And then Trey Benson's going to be our 112 here. Trey Benson's a guy I really haven't seen so far in these mocks jump up into the first round. He's a guy that should be going probably into the first because he went to a team that just drafted Marvin Harrison Jr., that has Kyler, that has Trey McBride, that's got Michael Wilson. It's going to be a good offensive system there. James Conner, obviously still going to be relevant this year, but Trey Benson is set up to be the running back 1 there. If not this year, next year for sure. But that alone makes him in the draft capital, was he third round? Was he beginning of the third? I can't remember. Or was he into the second?
Benson was 302.
Right at the top of the third.
Or maybe they moved up and it was 301. I don't remember. But
so the draft capital is good for him. He got some of the best draft capital of any running back in this class.
Fell further than I expected.
Look, I mean, there's just questions with some of these guys below him. I think you could technically, This next tier is hard. We should just talk about this. These next two tiers are the toughest tiers for us to rank. But Benson, we think, being a potential running back 1, like he should be up here with these guys in this tier. Let's talk about.
Yeah, I mean, we're already at the top 12 assets in your dynasty rookie drafts this year. This next tier is going to be the top 15. So we're getting late first, early second range, which is something that we've talked about for a long time. Target those assets. We were screaming that pre-draft. And guess what happened? It paid off when you invested in both of those, and you're still getting first-round talent assets here at the beginning of the second round. And we were recommending that a lot for people in our team blueprints to maybe even trade back from the late first to get multiple early seconds if that was possible. And if you want one of those team blueprints, you can go over to flockfantasy.com/domain, and you can sign up for the Mother Flocker tier. You can submit your team or your roster, and we'll do a team blueprint for you, give you all the advice you want, all the advice you need on that team, give you your 3-year outlook, your players to target, players to sell, and just additional suggestions and comments that are relevant to your team. And if you have any follow-up questions, we're happy to help you out there too. It's a great Discord community, and you can get all of our exclusives, our rookie draft guide, which we'll have an updated version, I think. So anyways, back to the C tier. Brock Bowers is going to be at the top of the C tier here. He's probably one of the bigger fallers in the draft this year just because of how disgusting the landing spot is in Vegas. But I will say, as hard as it is to keep your head above the waves, and as much as I'm willing to admit that, there is a point where Brock Bowers becomes a buy. And if he is falling to the late first or early second, which is 100% possible in this year's class, I'm capitalizing there. He went top 13 in the NFL draft. And even though it's a disgusting situation in Vegas, there's opportunity for volume there. There absolutely is, because Bowers is not your stereotypical tight end. He is going to get a ton of receiving usage, I would assume, right out the gate. Ladd McConkey is also going to be in this tier. He's going to be the number one option in the Chargers offense. Now, the Chargers aren't going to be as pass heavy as they have been in past years because they were soft and it was a terrible scheme. And you obviously have Greg Roman coming in as the OC. Harbaugh's coming in and really trying to implement his system and his team culture. And that's going to be a lot tougher. That's going to be a lot of ground and pound. But look, Ladd McConkey as a match there, I think is perfect. I think it's absolutely perfect. He goes to the early second to LA, being tied to Justin Herbert. Quentin Johnson has a ton of questions. McConkey, in my opinion, has one of the safest floors, especially with the landing spot here in this class. Keon Coleman is an upside guy. He absolutely is. I mean, his highlight reel is ridiculous. He had a disappointing combine, but he goes to the Buffalo Bills. This is one of the landing spots that everyone was dreaming of going into the NFL draft. They pass up on a wide receiver in the late first. They keep trading back, and they end up with Keon Coleman in the early second round. Who else is there? Shakir? I mean, Shakir's okay, but
it's really just Kincaid.
It's Kincaid. So this is going to be our tier here, and the reason I guess that they're lower than the guys above is none of these assets in the C tier I'm ever taking over Worthy.
I agree with that as well. Like,
and
I think
Brooks and Benson, just with the demand of running backs right now.
Again, the B, C, and D tier here is tough. Like, I think Bowers, you could make an argument to take over Benson. I think Coleman, if you really, really wanted to say, yeah, he's the wide receiver one, the volume's going to be there. But I mean, let's not ignore that Coleman has a lot of development to happen as well. I mean, he's not going to step in right away and be a dominant wide receiver one, I don't think. But let's go to the D tier. Again, these three tiers are the hardest, and we'll start with Xavier Legette, a guy that's got to move up our rankings a little bit because of the draft capital he got, because he is the wide receiver one in Carolina. He is better than Mingo, in my opinion. They're similar.
What about Deontay Johnson?
Oh, yeah.
Deontay's
probably the wide receiver one. Yeah. But Legette definitely, like...
you have to respect the draft capital.
Deontay's not an over-the-top guy, while Legette is. And so I think Legette's going to have a good role in that offense for Bryce Young. I think Bryce Young has a good deep ball. Like, I think Legette's going to be relevant. He's one of my favorite values, I think. It's crazy how, we did not hate Legette. We hated his price. But now this is warranted, in my opinion.
He's still going late second in all the mocks that we've been seeing, and he got first-round draft capital. So that's one of the perfect prices.
Adonai Mitchell going to our beloved Indianapolis Colts. First of all, I love the pick for the Colts. Second of all, Adonai Mitchell was a guy that after watching his Georgia tape, after watching his Texas tape, coming out and we were doing our original rookie evaluations, I was like, you know what? I'm not super high on this guy. The tape's not bad in some spots, but the analytics are bad. Adonai Mitchell is a guy that throughout the draft process, as I learned more, I actually became less down on. And that was because a couple of things. Number one, you look into his yards per route run at Texas and how they used him and what their offense was like. And our guy Ryan was telling me, like, look, this yards per route run is kind of misleading in the sense that they were using him so much as a decoy that it really brought down his efficiency. And I'm like, okay. I mean, it definitely affects his bakery score too. But then you also look at his reception perception profile and his route tree. It's better than I thought it would be. I remember coming out and being like, there's some green on here. Like, this is good. And when you watch the tape, Adonai Mitchell is very skilled. There were character concerns, but I like the fit with the Colts. And you remember, correct me if I'm wrong, but the last year's Shane Steichen's offense was the year that Devonta Smith had a bunch of over-the-top plays. Am I correct in that? That was that year, right?
Yeah.
So when I think about Adonai Mitchell being used in the Colts offense, that's what I think of, because Adonai Mitchell has 4.3 speed, guys. And so he is a burner guy. He is an athletic freak, and I think the Colts are going to use him similar in that offense as Shane Steichen used Devonta Smith in that Eagles offense that year. That was the year Devonta Smith was a wide receiver 1 because of all of those big plays and because of those touchdowns. And I think Adonai Mitchell, if they can harness the talent, if they can harness the work ethic, which again, Chris Ballard went bananas saying that his work ethic has no issues. You saw that, and I think is a great fit. I think he's going to be used well. I'm actually pretty high on AD Mitchell. I think he's going to be really good for the Indianapolis Colts. Ricky Pearsall got first-round draft capital. So if you want to take Ricky Pearsall at the top of this tier, fine. I'm advocating to rank him now as the wide receiver 3 in San Francisco because I think until one of those guys gets traded, like, we can't just assume it's going to happen. And so when and if one of those guys is traded, one of those guys being Ayuk and Debo, we can move Pearsall up. But for now, I think he sits in the middle of this tier. Oh, and then we talk about Penix. Holy crap. We thought about, like, just making a Penix tier and saying, put the Penix tier wherever you want, because Michael Penix, like, Nathan's like, I'm taking him over all these guys. And I'm like, but why? He's not going to start. He's not going to produce. Yeah, sure, you're drafting him for, 3 years from now? But I'm going to take 3 years of AD Mitchell production probably over Penix right now. But then...
As a wide receiver, potentially 3?
But Penix is a 24-year... I mean, he's going to be 27 when Kirk Cousins' contract is up. He's also got injury history. Like, he's risky. He was risky anywhere. Coming from an IU fan, I love Michael Penix. But for dynasty purposes, what upside is he bringing you for the next 2 years? Probably very little, unless you want to bet on injury. If it were J.J. McCarthy, of course I would take J.J. McCarthy over all these guys on the Falcons. But Penix has questions. Penix is risky.
I mean, you're talking about a guy who was drafted over J.J. McCarthy.
I know, but I'm not necessarily looking at the draft situation and saying that's the reason, because I think it was an awful pick. I think it was an awful, terrible, confusing pick.
I know, but awful aside, I mean, it's kind of the same thing with Leggett. We didn't think Leggett was a great pick in the late first round, but we're respecting his draft capital and we're taking him higher than a lot of people are.
Legett's going to play. Penix is not going to play. Like, he's not. They're not playing him over Cousins.
I know they're not, but
we're
talking about a quarterback in a super flex league with the demand and with the draft capital. I've never in my life seen a pick that insane. 2, I've never in my life seen a top 10 quarterback fall to the late second. And it's going to happen this year.
And I
am taking him there all day, every day of the week. Twice on Sundays.
There's a demand for quarterbacks in Superflex League, but there's a demand for quarterbacks that play. And Michael Penix is not going to play. He's not going to play. He's not helping you win dynasty championships.
Well, I mean, if you're a hard rebuild, are you not smashing Michael Penix in that range?
Sure, yeah. I mean, I guess
we play dynasty in 3-year windows, and Michael Penix will be starting within a 3-year window.
I'm not sure that is an absolute statement.
Cousins is guaranteed $100 million, which spans 2 years of money, and then after that, it is a total crapshoot.
Yeah, but who are you to say that Kirk Cousins won't have a good end of his career like Aaron Rodgers did?
I mean, who are you to say that he's going to have a phenomenal one?
I'm not saying that, but that's why there's so much risk baked into this pick. That's why I'm saying there are guys easily in this tier that I'm going to take over Penix, because
to me, I think
not the starter.
I think the big comp is Jordan Love. Obviously, ended up being super cheap because Aaron Rodgers had 2 back-to-back MVP seasons, and everyone was like, well, what's going to happen with Love? Well, number one, he went late first. Number 2, that situation was up in the air to begin with. The second they drafted Love was being overdrafted because people thought that Aaron Rodgers might be moved away from Green Bay earlier than it ended up happening. And that to me is just a different situation. I mean, we're talking about Aaron Rodgers compared to Kirk Cousins. Cousins coming off an Achilles. Cousins never really having as much success as Rodgers ever. Look, I have my own opinions about the Falcons front office, but if I'm getting Penix at this price, it is not even a question I'm taking him.
And you're talking about 19th here, right? So 19th, that's the 207. I'm taking him at the 207 too. Like, he's in this tier for a reason.
Yeah, and I would take him earlier than that.
He's in this tier for a reason, but like there are guys I think that have high upside as receivers. Leggett, Mitchell. I think I'd take him over Pearsall personally, but I think some of those guys there, like, I think they have high enough upside.
I'd definitely take him over Pearsall, 100%.
Well, then you can move him around, Luke, because I think I would do that too. It's Leggett and Mitchell that I struggle with, and then the guys in the C tier, I just can't do it. I'm a Hoosier fan. Michael Penix made my team win. I love the dude. I just don't understand it. So, and then let's go to Jalen Polk. Jalen Polk was drafted to be the wide receiver one in New England, supposedly, unless you want to count Kendrick Bourne, which I guess you could. We just don't know what that offense is going to look like. We moved Polk down in this tier after they drafted Javon Baker because we're high on Javon Baker and we think he could challenge Polk for some targets and some volume there. We're at 20 minutes, so let's get through these last couple tiers a little bit fast.
Yeah, so with the F tier, we're going to have Malachi Corley at the top. He goes to a really good landing spot with the Jets, playing with Aaron Rodgers alongside Garrett Wilson. There is zero target competition past Garrett Wilson in that offense. And yeah, I know Garrett Wilson commands a lot of volume and a lot of targets, but there's a lot of other targets to go around, especially with Rodgers in that offense. So I'm super excited about that. I'm super excited about his yak ability and what he could offer there. And we're excited.
Yeah,
big time.
It's a good landing spot.
Yeah, Jermaine Burton goes to the Cincinnati Bugles. This is really fun.
Sleeper pick, high five.
This is super fun. He got way better draft capital than I think a lot of people expected.
Not me.
And this to me is a pick where I think they're getting ready, preparing themselves for when T. Higgins leaves. They have made it pretty clear that they're not willing to pay T. Higgins, and they're not able to. They're going to have to pay Jamar Chase pretty soon. They can't afford to pay top dollar to two wide receivers in that offense, with Burrow getting top dollar as well at the QB position. Burton is the succession plan. If T. Higgins does not move this offseason, he will be gone next season, and Burton is the next man up.
And he's
I
talented
think he
enough
has
to do
the
it.
talent and the ability to really effectively fill those shoes. Yeah. Roman Wilson as well.
This was no secret.
I'll
Mike
tell you
Tomlin
what,
loves
man.
the kid.
Mike Tomlin loves Roman Wilson, and Roman Wilson goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Do not lie to yourself. This does impact George Pickens. Now, it doesn't impact George Pickens as much as it could have in this year's draft. They could have taken a receiver higher, but I mean, we know how Pittsburgh operates. They rarely take a receiver any higher than the second or third round. And with Roman Wilson, I think this is a great landing spot for a team that's going to be pretty mediocre in the pass game, and Roman Wilson is exclusively a slot receiver. He's going to be an easy target for a guy like Russ, an easy target for potentially Fields if you're into that. We don't really know, but Roman Wilson, I think there's a lot of opportunity for him to get a decent amount of volume there, and he could be very, very effective. Ben Sinnott goes to Washington.
Great landing spot. We're very high on this.
Phenomenal landing spot.
Late second. I love this pick.
Jaden Daniels, a rushing QB. He'll have a security blanket with Terry McLaurin and Ben Sinnott.
Yeah.
Maybe Jahan Dotson if he can kind of pick up where he left off after his first year. Definitely not last year. But Ben Sinnott, man, he has plenty of opportunity there. And I think he is this year's tight end to target for sure out of value.
I think so too.
Marshawn Lloyd, I really, really like what happened to Marshawn Lloyd. Marshawn Lloyd is a guy that we didn't expect to be a bell cow running back. We didn't expect most of these running backs to be bell cows. But he goes to the Green Bay Packers to play alongside Josh Jacobs, who's going to be getting a majority of the carries, and Marshawn Lloyd is going to be your Aaron Jones.
And also,
that's what they drafted him for. His receiving upside is ridiculous.
Keep in mind, Josh Jacobs is pretty much on a one-year deal.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about the future for Marshawn Lloyd. Marshawn Lloyd could be the back there.
Yep. Don't say A.J. Dillon is even relevant in that offense. They overpaid him. They paid him like $2.5 million to stay for one more year, and he hasn't done crap since his first.
So the most
year.
they have their running backs on a deal right now is 1 year.
Yep.
And you just got Marshawn Lloyd with day 2 draft capital.
Yep. And Corum is going to go at the end of this tier. So I think we're at 26 now. So look at that. Lo and behold, we get a bunch of crap for not putting Corum in our top 24. And he still, in our opinion, doesn't belong there because he's going to be sharing a backfield with Kyron Williams. Kyron Williams, I actually have a theory. I don't think he's going to lose as much value as people expected right out the gate because his value was already kind of assuming that LA was potentially going to draft a running back.
Sure, yeah.
And it was pretty reasonable. I mean, you're talking about a guy who had 22 points per game last year, the second most among running backs in the NFL. Is it going to be that much this year? Probably not with Corum coming into the offense, but Kyron is still going to be productive. I think Corum's still going to get some good opportunity as well. But the way that McVay runs his offenses with running backs, I mean, don't be shocked if Corum doesn't get a ton of opportunity year one. It may be a little bit of time before we really see what Corum can do.
Corum went a little bit higher than I thought he would. So if you were higher on Corum, shout out, you were right. We missed on that one. The G tier, Ray Davis is going to be at the top. So this is going to be pick 27. So we are in like the 302 range. We're in the third, so you know what's coming. Here is our running back tier. This is where we're targeting the running backs. A lot of people are going to go guys like Luke McCaffrey here. A lot of people are going to go Troy Franklin here. A lot of people are going to go Jalen McMillan here. A lot of people are going to say Bucky Irving, Tez Walker. This is where we take a shot on these running backs, because all of these running backs could be in committees here. Ray Davis, my favorite landing spot of these guys. Ray Davis going to the Bills. I think he fits alongside James Cook. I think he could get red zone carries. I think he could carve out a role. I like it a lot.
If I'm a James Cook owner, I'm scared of this. 100%.
I don't know if I'm scared. I think James Cook could do what he did last year
because of the red
with
zone
Ray
usage.
Davis. But James Cook didn't get a ton of red zone usage last year, and he still was able to produce, right? I mean, you can fact check me. Jalen Wright going to the Dolphins. Look, Jalen Wright is just another fast guy that Dolphins have. You saw games last year where it was Ahmed, or you saw games where it was Achane. You saw games where it was Mostert, Jeff Wilson. They like to have a bunch of fast guys, and then it's whoever's day, wherever. I don't think this heavily affects Devon Achane, because, I mean, I think you saw when Devon Achane was healthy, him getting consistent red zone carries last year.
22nd red zone touches, James Cook was, so you're right.
Yeah. So they really weren't using him. They were using, when he was healthy, the Damian Harris, right?
I think they tried to.
Who was their red zone back last year? I think Ray Davis is a new red zone back. That's my point.
Yeah, he is.
So Jalen Wright, he fits into that. I think they'll use him like they use all their other 4 running backs. So it's a good committee, shot to take. And I think he's got a lot of upside, and he's very athletic. And then you've got Audric Estime, a guy that we said could potentially be a sleeper, going to the Denver Broncos. This is not a bad landing spot. The draft capital, not great.
Not at all.
But I think he could easily be a committee back here as well. I think he's going to challenge Javonte Williams for some carries, and he deserves to be in this tier with the other guys that could be in a committee back. Now, Braylon Allen is here as well. He's in a committee with Breece Hall. We're just putting him in this tier because he's going to be a committee back, and because you always draft committee backs in the 3rd round because of the hit rate. Then we're going to have JT Sanders. JT Sanders going to a pretty good landing spot at the beginning of day 3 to the Carolina Panthers. He'll probably start there. We believe in the talent of JT Sanders still. Then Troy Franklin. Look, I know the landing spot is very ideal.
He's with Bo Nix again. Maybe Bo Nix pulled a little CJ Stroud and he called up Sean Payton. And he's like, "Hey, can you bring me my guy?"
I think for a day 3 wide receiver, he has as good a chance of any day 3 wide receiver at carving out a good role.
I mean, look at the opportunity there. It's Cortland Sutton. And
between the opportunity and the chemistry with Bo Nix, I get it. But people are, I think this is going to lead to Troy Franklin being overdrafted. I think you're going to see him taking over these running backs and maybe some of the guys in the F tier.
He might be one of those day 3 guys that starts to sniff the late 2nd round, and that's a price where I'm not taking him.
So we'll see. But our ranking here on him is 31. Okay, so that's
a price where we take him.
That's mid late 3rd. That's where I'm. I mean, look, guys, he's a 4th round wide receiver. The hit rates on those are not good. And then we're gonna have Javon Baker. We are a little bit biased because we're high on Javon Baker, but also going to a situation that's good where there's going to be plenty of targets there for him, and I think he could challenge. I think he could challenge Jalen Polk there in that offense. I think he should challenge Kendrick Bourne. He's a good dart throw at the end of the 3rd. And then these are kind of our honorable mention guys. Real quick.
We got Theo Johnson going to the Giants, the tight end out of Penn State. I mean, there's just, again, more open opportunity there. He's going to compete with Bellinger. Bellinger hasn't really done much in his first 2 or 3 seasons in the NFL. There's a chance there for him to hit and for him to be effective in that offense. Jalen McMillan, our pre-draft favorite wide receiver, or at least mine, ended up going 3rd round to Tampa Bay. Not a great landing spot playing behind Evans and Godwin. Worth taking a shot on him if you want to, though, because he was a day 2 wide receiver. Luke McCaffrey, another day 2 wide receiver that we're just putting in here. I think this is disgusting. I think
I'm not that grossed out by it.
I would much rather have Terry or Dotson or Ben Sinnott take a shot on one of those guys before I would on Luke McCaffrey. But again, got to respect the draft capital. He was a fine prospect. He wasn't anything special. Maybe he can carve out a role in that offense, but I just don't think there's a ton of upside there with a rushing QB. Isaac Guerendo, he goes to San Fran.
Could be committee back.
The only reason he's here is because maybe he gets some opportunity. Maybe he usurps Elijah Mitchell, who's still there. And he's a speedy guy that Shanahan could utilize, kind of like, I don't know, maybe on jet sweeps. And
you
guy in the red zone.
See Mike McDaniel do that all the time in the same type of offense. So.
Right. And then we got Bucky Irving. He goes to Tampa Bay. So all this talk about Tampa saying, we're going to draft a running back, and we're like, oh, shoot, are they going to take another day 2 running back? They go 4th round, and they take Bucky Irving. Am I super worried worried about Rachaad White because of this Irving landing spot? Not necessarily. I also don't think that there's a ton of upside with Irving in this offense. Does that mean I don't think he's going to get opportunity? No. But I think he really is just going to be an effective role player, and he'll be more valuable to an NFL team from an NFL perspective than a fantasy football perspective. And I think that bodes really well for Rachaad White in this offense. Tez Walker is going to be at the end of this tier, and
he could carve out a role there.
He could, absolutely. He goes to Baltimore, and he had a horrible Senior Bowl, really was a faller. And at the end of the day, you're just kind of taking a shot here, and Tez Walker is a guy that maybe you want to take a shot on because of the opportunity in Baltimore's offense.
Look, there's our top 36. Take a good look, screenshot it, use it for your rookie drafts. This is how we're going to be drafting.
Yep. Except I'm taking Penix higher. That's about it.
Yeah, I mean whatever. And again, like, I see the argument for it. You're right. The Aaron Rodgers situation is not the Kirk Cousins situation at all. It's completely different. So you could make the bet that Penix is going to start in 2 years. But listen, if you disagree with these, that's totally fine. Like, we're not NFL scouts. We're trying to go off landing spot, draft capital combination, as well as kind of our own evaluation, going off bakery scores, analytics. Your guess is just as good as ours, but this is how we're drafting. So this is, in our opinion, how we're going to be taking these rookies this year. More rookie content coming very, very soon. We slept for 6 hours from like 6 a.m. to noon, and then we're here recording this video, and we're here to record 4 more. So make sure you drop a like on the video, and make sure you subscribe to the channel if you play Dynasty. Thank you guys so much for 10K. Flockfantasy.com/domain. Use code domain, choose another Flocker tier, and you get personalized rookie draft advice, a custom team review in the form of a team blueprint, which is a comprehensive plan for your Dynasty team. We'd love to do one for you. Appreciate you guys. See you later.